continuing with the MapReduce version 2. Before going into the depth how the job run is performed in MRv2, what are the components and how the job scheduling and processing is performed there. First, we have to discuss how MRv2 is different from MRv1. What are the components that were there in MRv1 and what new components added into the MRv2, then it will be easier for us to understand the anatomy of job run in MRv2. So MRv1 versus MRv2. MRv1 or MRv2 is called yarn. Yarn is yet another resource negotiator. It is also the operating system of the Hadoop environment. With respect to master, who is master in MRv1? Job tracker is the master which handles both resource management as well as job processing. While in MRv2, it is resource manager which only looks after the resource management. So the second work of job processing is done by another unit. Slave on each node, data node. In MRv1 it is task tracker which is the slave on each data node, but in MRv2 it is node manager which does the work of slave node in each data node. Then job tracker controls the life cycle of the job, while in MRv2 per job application master control the life cycle of the job. Application master is transient in nature and will be cleaned up after the job is completed. So the life cycle of the job is handled or monitored by the application master in MRv2, and it is the transient in nature and it will be deleted or it will be removed or cleaned up after the job is completed. Then respect to mapper and reducer. In MRv1, task tracker will manage the processes that run tasks like mapper and reducer. This is the work of a task tracker does this work. But in MRv2, container will manage the processes that run tasks mapper and reducer. Container are transient in nature and it will be cleaned up. So in MRv2, container does the work of processing the task that runs on mapper and reducer. Then task for mapper and reducer on each node are pre-configured and cannot be changed. It can cause underutilization of job in MRv1, while in MRv2 tasks for mapper and reducer are not pre-configured, relatively effective utilization of resources. Scalability. In MRv1 it is single point of failure and probability is high as job tracker controls each job life cycle as well as resource consumption. Have issues with cluster more than 4000 nodes. While MRv2 can configure for high availability, resource manager is relatively stable than job tracker. So after understanding the difference between MRv1 and MRv2, we will go further in the architecture of yarn. Yarn on MRv2 contains the client. Yarn client is on the top of the architecture. Then resource data processing is done by resource manager. Resource manager work is also divided by the scheduler, which does the work of job scheduling, and application manager. Application manager is also does the work that resource manager tells it to do. Then node manager works on each data node as a slave node, and each node manager contains container and application master. Application master, in the previous slide when we were discussing the difference between both MRv1 and MRv2, what was the work of application master? It controls the life cycle of a job in MRv2, and container, it handles the map task that is running on mapper and reducer. It is and both are transient in nature and it will be cleaned up when the job is completed. This is the anatomy of job run in MRv2. First, as we compared it with the anatomy of job run in MRv1. There were three in MRv1. There were three entities were there: client node, job tracker, and task tracker. But in MRv2, it is client node, resource manager node, then node manager node. Node manager node are two because first it will be used for starting the container, and real work of task processing is done at the yarn child or task JVM. As it was in MRv1, it is done by child JVM. So how it is initiated? Client initiate the job and it will assign the job to the resource manager. Resource manager works as a master node and it handles the work of job resource management. And resource management, the work of resource management, then what it does, it get new application. Then third is copy job resources, means before initializing or starting job, the needed jar files and archive files will be stored in the from local file system to the HDFS file system. Then fourth is job client submit the applications, means all the formalities that is needed, hardware, software configuration that is needed to start the job, it is submitted to the resource manager. Then resource manager start the container. Container does the work of handling the actual MapReduce task that is run on the task JVM. Then node manager are the work as a slave on each data node. Then the node manager launch and initialize the job. Application master retrieve input splits, means the actual data is stored in the HDFS. Then the actual data set or data is retrieved from the HDFS file system. After that, node manager application master allocate resources from the resource manager. After allocating resources, application master start container. A container will see or handle the work of actual task processing in the mapper and reducer. So node manager launch the task JVM, yarn child, the actual mapper reduce task runs here. After the job completion, it will all the system acknowledge that to the client that the job is done. So yeah, if we discuss the what type of failures are there in the yarn. So MapReduce version 2, it's more fault tolerant as compared to MRv1. But how many types of failures will be there? First is task failure, mostly same as classic MRv1. In MRv1 also three type of failures are there: task failure, task tracker failure, and job tracker failure. In the same way, first type of failure is task failure. Then second is application master failure. If application master is failed, that means the job is failed. So because the work of application master is to control the life cycle of a job. So it can be controlled by yarn or resource manager, max retries. Then node manager failure means if there is no heartbeats from node manager to resource manager for 10 minutes, then that task tracker will be removed from the fold. Then resource manager failure. Although the probability of resource manager failure is relatively low, no jobs can be submitted until RM is brought back and running. High availability can be configured in yarn, which means there will be multiple RM running in the cluster. There is no high availability in MRv1, only one job tracker.